They called her a pet, I called her my partner. The colony had been there for 5 years, and yet Velora still felt like a stranger to them. A beautiful, mysterious stranger whose rules and rhythms no human fully knew. Lieutenant Arya Kellen stepped out of the landing pod, her boots crunching softly on the alien soil. The air smelled sweet, almost like honey mixed with pine, and her breath caught in her throat. Every mission brought excitement, but this one felt different. She wasn't just exploring today, she was looking for signs of life, intelligent life. The colonists had seen creatures before, small, brightly colored beings that flitted through the trees, but none had approached humans. Some were harmless, some shy, and some simply disappeared when noticed. Most of the colonists considered Velora's native life cute or amusing, often calling them pets, as if that diminished their existence. But Arya had never agreed with that. To her, intelligence could hide in any form, no matter how strange or small. She adjusted her helmet and scanned the forest with her portable sensor. Trees towered like living skyscrapers, their leaves shimmering in the soft light of Velora's twin suns. Her eyes caught a movement, a subtle shimmer near a cluster of luminous plants. She crouched low, careful not to startle whatever it was. From behind a bush, a figure stepped out. It was unlike anything Arya had seen. Standing about 4 feet tall, its body was sleek, covered in smooth, iridescent skin that changed color depending on the light. Its eyes were large, round, and intelligent, reflecting a deep curiosity. Its limbs were long and flexible, ending in delicate fingers that seemed almost too graceful for this wild world. Arya froze. The creature did not flee. It tilted its head slightly, watching her with what could only be described as caution, yet not fear. In that moment, Arya felt a spark of recognition. This was not just an animal, this was something more. "Hello," she whispered, unsure if the creature could understand words. It cocked its head further, as if considering her. Arya slowly lowered her scanner and raised a hand in greeting. "I'm Arya. I'm not here to hurt you." The creature stayed still for a moment longer. Then, with a soft, melodic sound that resonated through the air, it repeated a noise that sounded almost like a syllable. "Ari." Arya blinked, stunned. It had tried to say her name, her heart pounded. She knelt down, careful to appear non-threatening. "Yes, it's me." "Arya," she extended a hand, palm open, hoping for a gesture of trust. The creature approached slowly, every movement deliberate. When it finally reached her, it touched her hand with its slender fingers. A strange warmth spread through her, a feeling of connection she had never experienced with any other life form. "Lyra," the creature said softly, as if speaking its own name. Arya realized that it had just introduced itself. "Lyra," she repeated, smiling. The name suited her. There was a lightness in it, a grace that matched the creature's movements. For the next hour, Arya and Lyra explored the nearby forest together. Lyra seemed to understand her gestures, mimicking some movements and responding to others with surprising intelligence. It pointed to a glowing flower, and when Arya touched it, she discovered it was warm to the touch and pulsed with a faint, rhythmic glow. Lyra chirped softly, a sound like laughter, as if proud of her discovery. By the time the sun dipped behind the violet clouds, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Arya knew that she had found something extraordinary. Lyra was no ordinary creature. She was intelligent, curious, and capable of understanding human behavior. And for the first time, Arya felt that Velora was not a stranger, but a world that could become a home, with Lyra as her guide. Returning to the colony was not easy. The officials had set strict rules, no interacting with native species beyond observation. They called them pets or exotic wildlife, warning colonists not to get attached. Arya ignored the rules, slipping past the research station and hiding Lyra in the shadows of the supply building. She couldn't explain why she felt so strongly, but she knew that Lyra deserved respect, not labels. That night, Arya lay in her small quarters, thinking about the encounter. The hum of the colony's generators was comforting, yet distant, like a reminder of how far she had come from Earth. Lyra curled up quietly on the floor beside her, her body glowing faintly in the darkness. Arya reached out and touched her, marveling at the warmth. "You don't have to be a pet, Lyra," she whispered. "You're my partner." Lyra lifted her head, eyes reflecting the tiny light of the room, and chirped softly in agreement. In that simple sound, Arya felt a promise. They would face this new world together, no matter what challenges came. Days passed, and the bond between them grew stronger. Lyra learned to mimic simple human speech, picking up words and concepts quickly. She watched Arya with a keen intelligence, anticipating needs and offering subtle guidance, whether in navigation through Velora's forests or in solving problems with colony equipment. The colonists noticed changes in Arya. She smiled more often, seemed calmer, and her efficiency in missions improved. But when they asked about her companion, she would smile enigmatically and say, "It's a friend." Some whispered behind her back, labeling Lyra a pet again, but Arya ignored them. She had learned something important in that first hour of meeting Lyra. Greatness could come from unexpected places, and intelligence did not always wear a human face. One afternoon, a sudden storm swept across the colony. The wind howled like a living creature, shaking tents and scattering equipment. Most of the colonists scrambled to secure their stations, panicked and shouting instructions. Arya, however, remained calm. Lyra chirped sharply, and Arya realized that the alien had noticed a shift in the storm's pattern, a dangerous overhang of clouds that could trigger lightning strikes. Together, they moved quickly through the chaos. Lyra guided Arya to unstable areas, helping secure equipment and warning her of dangerous spots. Arya realized that Lyra's instincts were far superior to any sensor or instrument the colony could provide. When the storm finally passed, many colonists were astonished that their supplies and equipment remained intact. "You did this?" one of the engineers asked, eyes wide. Arya smiled gently and nodded toward Lyra. "We did it," she said, "together." That night in the quiet aftermath, Arya reflected on the growing truth. She had found a partner, a friend, and perhaps the most extraordinary ally humanity had yet encountered. Lyra's intelligence, empathy, and courage were unmatched, and if the colony could learn to respect her, they might see what Arya had seen from the start. That Velora's true wonders were not just in its landscapes or resources, but in its people, the beings who had lived here long. Before humans arrived, Arya drifted to sleep with Lyra curled beside her, her mind buzzing with possibilities. There would be challenges ahead. The colony would resist change. Others would see Lyra as a pet and fail to understand her potential. But Arya felt ready. Together, they could face anything. The stars outside the window blinked silently, distant and cold, yet full of promise. In that vast universe, Arya understood one simple truth: the bond between a human and a Veloran could change everything. And she intended to see just how far that bond could reach. The morning sun rose over Velora, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the planet's wild flowers. Arya Kellen stood on the edge of the colony, looking at the forest where she first met Lyra. Today, they had a new mission, mapping the unexplored northern ridge of Velora's forests. The council insisted it was risky, but Arya had her own reasons for going. She wanted to understand Lyra better, to see what the Veloran could teach her about this strange, beautiful world. Lyra stepped beside her, her skin shimmering faintly in the morning light. She chirped a soft greeting, her large eyes full of curiosity. Arya smiled and handed her a small pack of equipment. Lyra studied it carefully, then carried it effortlessly. Watching her, Arya realized that Lyra was not just smart, she was intuitive. She understood needs before they were spoken, noticed dangers before they arrived, and solved problems in ways that humans often overlooked. "Ready?" Arya asked. Lyra chirped sharply, a sound that seemed to say always. The forest greeted them with a chorus of sounds, soft rustling, distant calls, and the whisper of leaves. Arya and Lyra moved quietly, letting the rhythm of Velora guide them. The northern ridge was rumored to contain structures left behind by the planet's ancient inhabitants, artifacts that could reveal Velora's history. Scientists in the colony had been eager to explore, but none had ventured this far. Lyra paused, tilting her head toward a dense patch of trees. Arya followed her gaze and noticed faint glowing lines etched into the bark, forming patterns that pulsed like soft light. She crouched to examine them. "These aren't natural," she whispered. "Someone made these." Lyra reached out and traced one line with her delicate fingers. The glow spread along the pattern, illuminating the forest in a warm, amber light. Arya felt a shiver run down her spine. The markings seemed to respond to Lyra's touch. It was as if she could read the forest, communicate with it, or even awaken it. "Do you understand?" Arya asked softly. Lyra's eyes met hers and she chirped again. Arya didn't need words to understand. This was more than intelligence, it was connection. Lyra had a way of interacting with Velora that no human could match. She seemed to sense the heartbeat of the world itself. As they ventured deeper, Arya realized just how dependent she had become on Lyra's instincts. When the ground trembled slightly, Lyra pulled her back, avoiding a hidden pit. When a sudden gust threatened to topple a fragile bridge, Lyra leaped forward, anchoring ropes to nearby trees. Every step of the way, the Veloran guided her, keeping her safe, showing her possibilities she would never have seen alone. By noon, they reached a clearing where the forest opened to reveal towering stone structures. Moss and vines covered them, but intricate carvings glimmered beneath the growth. Arya's heart raced. This was proof of Velora's ancient civilization, proof that intelligence and culture had existed here long before humans arrived. Lyra touched the carvings, and they pulsed faintly under her fingers. Then, with a chirp that seemed almost like laughter, she moved her hands in patterns that mirrored the lines on the stone. The carvings responded, glowing brighter and illuminating symbols that Arya could barely comprehend. "It's like she's talking to them," Arya said, awe in her voice. "These symbols, they're a language." Lyra looked at her, eyes wide and expressive, and chirped softly again. Arya realized that the Veloran wasn't just intelligent. She was a translator, a bridge between two species separated by time and space. Excited by the discovery, Arya recorded every moment, documenting Lyra's interactions. Yet the excitement was tinged with worry. If the colony authorities discovered Lyra's abilities, they might take her away, labeling her a special study rather than recognizing her as a partner. Arya's determination strengthened. She would protect Lyra no matter the cost. As they studied the ruins, Arya noticed movement at the edge of the clearing. A group of humans from the colony, armed with scanners and protective gear, approached. Their expressions were curious but wary. "Arya, what are you doing here?" one of them called. Arya stepped forward. "I'm exploring," she said simply, not mentioning Lyra just yet. She hoped to buy time. The leader of the group, Dr. Varen, frowned. "We were told this area is off-limits. You could have caused damage or worse." Arya's gaze drifted to Lyra, who watched silently, her glowing eyes calm and patient. She had no doubt that Lyra could defend herself, but Arya wanted to avoid confrontation. "I'm aware of the risks," Arya said, "but we found something incredible." Artifacts, carvings, evidence of Velora's ancient civilization. Dr. Varen's curiosity overcame his caution. "Artifacts?" Arya nodded. "And there's more. There's a guide, someone who understands this place in ways we don't." She helped me navigate, avoid dangers, and interact with the ruins safely. She hesitated, then made a choice. "Her name is Lyra." The humans froze, their eyes flicking toward the Veloran. Some whispered. One of the engineers muttered, "A pet." Arya's jaw tightened. "She's not a pet, she's intelligent, capable, and," she paused, searching for the right words, "a partner." There was silence. Then Dr. Varen stepped closer, inspecting Lyra. "Fascinating," he murmured. "She responds to touch. She can communicate with the carvings." Lyra chirped and repeated Arya's name softly, then gestured toward the glowing lines. Dr. Varen's skepticism faltered as he watched. Slowly, he nodded. "This changes everything." By late afternoon, Arya and Lyra had led the team through the ruins, demonstrating how the markings responded to Lyra's presence. The humans were amazed, not just by the technology of the past, but by the unique partnership between human and Veloran. Arya felt a quiet pride. For the first time, someone outside of her small circle was beginning to see Lyra as more than a curiosity. Yet not everyone shared this view. Some colonists remained skeptical, whispering about risks and regulations. Arya ignored them. She had seen Lyra's intelligence, her empathy, and her courage. That was enough. As evening fell, they returned to the colony. The sun dipped behind the twin horizons, casting long shadows across the settlement. Lyra followed Arya silently, her presence a comforting reassurance. Despite the colony's mixed reactions, Arya felt confident. She and Lyra had proven themselves in ways that no human or machine could replicate. That night, Arya and Lyra sat together in a quiet corner of the colony, reviewing the day's findings. Lyra chirped softly, moving her hands in patterns that mirrored the glowing symbols from the ruins. Arya watched, fascinated. She realized that Lyra wasn't just a partner in exploration. She was a teacher, showing humans a new way to understand Velora, a way that combined empathy, intuition, and intelligence. "I think they're starting to understand, Lyra," Arya said softly. "Maybe they'll see you the way I do." Lyra chirped in response, brushing her fingers against Arya's hand. The connection was quiet but powerful, a bond that neither human nor Veloran could easily break. Arya felt hope, something she hadn't felt since arriving on Velora. This world, once alien and intimidating, was beginning to feel like home because of Lyra. The following days brought new challenges. Other parts of the northern ridge contained unstable terrain, dangerous wildlife, and unexpected weather patterns. But Arya and Lyra faced them together. Lyra's instincts saved them more than once, predicting landslides, hidden ravines, and sudden storms. Arya began to rely on her partner not just for guidance, but for companionship. The Veloran's presence made her stronger, more focused, and more determined to protect the colony while respecting the planet's life. Through these adventures, the colony slowly began to change. Reports of Lyra's intelligence reached the Council, sparking debates about Veloran rights and the ethics of human interaction with native species. Arya watched cautiously. Change was slow, but it had begun. She knew there would be resistance, but she also knew that the bond she shared with Lyra could demonstrate a new path, one of respect, collaboration, and mutual understanding. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting long, golden shadows over the settlement, Arya and Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the colony. The wind rustled through the alien trees, and Lyra's skin glowed faintly in the fading light. Arya placed a hand on her partner's shoulder, feeling warmth and trust radiate between them. "We're going to show them, Lyra," Arya said quietly. "We'll show them that intelligence, courage, and loyalty come in many forms. And maybe, just maybe, they'll finally see you as more than a pet." Lyra chirped softly in agreement. Together, they gazed at Velora, a world full of mysteries, dangers, and wonders waiting to be discovered. And together, they would face whatever challenges came, not as human and alien, but as partners, equal, trusted, and unstoppable. The morning air on Velora carried a quiet tension. Arya Kellen stood atop a ridge overlooking the colony, her eyes scanning the distant forests. Something was different today. The wind had a strange weight, carrying faint, unfamiliar sounds. Lyra stood beside her, skin shimmering softly as if sensing the same unease. "Do you feel it too?" Arya asked, her voice low. Lyra chirped sharply, tilting her head toward the forest edge. Her glowing eyes reflected awareness and concern. Arya's heart quickened. Lyra's instincts had never been wrong. If she was uneasy, there was a reason. Back at the colony, scientists and engineers were busy with routine tasks. But the mood was tense. Reports from the Northern Scouts hinted at strange energy readings beyond Velora's usual patterns, signs of a possible intruder or threat. Most of the colonists dismissed it, assuming equipment glitches. Arya knew better. She had learned that Velora always whispered its secrets to those who listened carefully, and Lyra was listening better than anyone. By mid-morning, the first signs appeared. Distant shapes moved through the trees, tall, dark silhouettes with sharp outlines, unlike any native Veloran life. They advanced cautiously but with precision, scanning the colony as they approached. Arya's heart pounded. These were not local creatures. They were intelligent. Organized, dangerous. "Lyra," Arya whispered, kneeling beside her partner. "What do we do?" Lyra chirped and leaped forward, her long limbs carrying her with incredible speed. She paused at a tree and made quick, precise gestures in the air. Arya understood immediately. Lyra had detected a safe path, a way to observe the newcomers without being noticed. The two of them moved silently through the forest, watching as the shapes drew closer. Arya realized with alarm that the newcomers carried equipment that emitted pulses of energy. They were scanning for resources or perhaps for life forms, and they were very thorough. "They're not Velorans," Arya muttered. "They're another species." "But they might be hostile." Lyra chirped sharply again, a warning. Arya nodded. She had no doubt. Their approach would not go unnoticed for long. She reached for her communicator. "Command," she whispered. "We have unidentified entities approaching. They could be hostile." Requesting authorization to engage reconnaissance and defensive measures. Static replied at first, then a voice. "Lieutenant Kellen, proceed carefully. We don't know their intentions. Report back immediately." Arya swallowed and turned her attention back to the forest. The dark shapes moved with silent efficiency, scanning, mapping, and observing the colony from the trees. She realized that if the colonists were unprepared, this could turn disastrous very quickly. "Lyra, we need to warn them," she said. Lyra chirped and began moving ahead, her glowing body blending with the forest light. Together, they navigated unseen paths, avoiding detection while getting closer to the colony. When they returned, Arya immediately gathered a small team of trusted colonists. They were equipped with communication devices and defensive tools, but Arya knew that conventional weapons might not be enough. Lyra's presence was their advantage. She understood Velora, its terrain, and even the behavior of the intruders better than any human could. By late afternoon, the newcomers reached the outskirts of the colony. Their technology was advanced, and their scanners probed the land with precision. Colonists panicked as warning alarms blared, but Arya stayed calm. She followed Lyra's guidance, moving silently through the colony and positioning sensors and barricades in anticipation. Lyra chirped softly, pointing to a series of hidden paths and weak points in the forest. Arya realized that their plan could not rely on force alone. They needed strategy, intelligence, and understanding of Velora's terrain. Lyra was the key. The first encounter happened near the eastern perimeter. One of the newcomers, a tall figure with armor that reflected sunlight, stepped into the clearing. Sensors detected them immediately and the team froze. Arya signaled for silence. Lyra chirped and the sensors went quiet. The creature looked around, confused by the lack of activity. It seemed to be searching for something, moving with careful precision. Arya watched as Lyra approached, moving with confidence and grace. She reached out, placing a hand near the creature's equipment. The newcomer froze, then stepped back, startled by the unexpected interaction. Lyra chirped again, tilting her head. Arya realized that Lyra was communicating, subtle gestures, sounds, and body language. It was a form of diplomacy, not aggression. Slowly, the intruder lowered its weapon. Lyra chirped again, and Arya understood the message. "We are not your enemies, but we will protect our home." The encounter lasted only minutes, but it changed everything. The intruders paused, scanning the forest with renewed caution. They seemed hesitant, as if unsure whether to attack or retreat. Lyra's presence had altered their behavior. Intelligence and empathy, Arya realized, could be as powerful as weapons. But the threat was not gone. By evening, more of the intruders had advanced. They were organized, moving in patterns that suggested strategy. Arya knew that a single encounter would not stop them. They needed a plan, and fast. She gathered the team again. "We can't fight them head-on," she said, "but we can use Velora to our advantage. Lyra knows the terrain, the hidden paths, and even the old ruins. If we work together, we can defend the colony without unnecessary conflict." Lyra chirped sharply, and Arya smiled. The Veloran understood completely. Together, they devised a strategy. Lyra would lead small teams through hidden paths, setting up sensors and traps to slow the intruders. Arya would coordinate with the colony, ensuring that everyone stayed safe while maximizing the planet's natural advantages. Night fell, and the intruders pressed closer. Arya and Lyra moved silently, leading small groups to strategic positions. Sensors were placed, hidden pathways utilized, and every move calculated. The forest itself became their ally, responding subtly to Lyra's guidance. Then the first clash occurred. One of the intruders stumbled into a pit hidden under leaves. Another was misled by a path that appeared open but ended at a thick wall of vines. Arya watched as Lyra directed each maneuver, her intelligence guiding humans and Velorans alike. The intruders were skilled, but they were unfamiliar with Velora, and Lyra knew it. By midnight, the colony had survived the first wave of intrusion without serious damage. Arya's heart pounded, but she allowed herself a moment of relief. Lyra chirped softly, brushing against her arm in reassurance. Together, they had turned the planet itself into a defensive partner. The following days were tense. The intruders did not retreat, but instead adapted, moving with increased caution. Arya realized that this was not just a battle for survival. It was a test. If they could survive, it would prove the strength of human and Veloran cooperation, the power of empathy, and the importance of understanding the world around them. Arya spent hours observing Lyra as she worked with the colony. The Veloran's intelligence amazed everyone. She solved complex problems, guided teams through dangerous terrain, and even anticipated the intruders' strategies. Slowly, colonists began to see her not as a pet or curiosity, but as a partner, equal in every way. One evening, after a long day of strategizing and observation, Arya and Lyra sat together on a ridge overlooking the colony. The twin suns had set and the stars blinked softly in the clear sky. Arya placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "We did it today," she said quietly, "but there's more to come, I know it." Lyra chirped in agreement, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. Arya smiled, feeling a surge of hope and determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as human and alien, but as partners, equals, and friends. As they watched the colony below, Arya realized a profound truth. Intelligence and courage were not limited to one species. Loyalty, empathy, and ingenuity could come in many forms. And with Lyra by her side, she knew that humanity had found a true ally in Velora, a being who could teach, protect, and inspire. The threat was real and danger still loomed, but Arya felt ready. Together, they had survived the first test. And together, they would face whatever came next, showing the colony, and perhaps the universe, that partnership and understanding could overcome even the greatest challenges. The colony had survived the first encounter with the intruders, but the air remained tense. Some colonists whispered about the dangers of trusting Velorans. They still called Lyra a pet behind her back, despite the evidence of her intelligence and courage. Arya Kellen ignored the whispers, but she could not ignore the frustration. It was one thing to survive, it was another to win respect. The council had called a meeting. Arya and Lyra were invited to present their findings and strategies. As Arya walked into the council chamber, she felt Lyra at her side, calm and poised. The Veloran's glowing skin shimmered in the soft light, a quiet reminder of the power and intelligence that humans were still struggling to understand. "Lieutenant Kellen," one council member said, frowning. "We have heard your reports, but some of your claims about your companion seem exaggerated. Are you suggesting that a non-human, a Veloran, can strategize and lead human teams?" Arya met his gaze steadily. "Yes," she said simply. "Lyra has saved lives, guided exploration, and solved problems that humans alone could not. She is not just a companion, she is a partner." Some council members exchanged skeptical glances. "A partner?" another asked. "We appreciate her abilities, but we cannot ignore the risks. This is a dangerous species, one we do not fully understand. How can you be sure she will always act in humanity's interest?" Arya took a deep breath. "Lyra has proven herself every day. She understands us, our goals, and our values. She is intelligent, empathetic, and loyal. She has risked herself to protect humans, without coercion, without fear. Isn't that exactly what we value in a partner?" Lyra chirped softly, tilting her head as if affirming Arya's words. Some members of the council shifted uncomfortably. Even the most skeptical could not deny what they had witnessed in the field. After a long discussion, the council allowed Arya and Lyra to continue working together, but under supervision. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Arya knew that actions would speak louder than words. The next mission tested that belief. Reports came from the northern forest. Another group of intruders was approaching, more organized than before. The colony had limited resources and panic was spreading. Arya and Lyra were tasked with leading the defense strategy. Lyra immediately assessed the situation. She moved swiftly through the forest, pointing out safe paths, weak points in the terrain, and potential ambush spots. Arya relayed the plan to the team, who hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to trust the guidance of a Veloran. "Follow her," Arya said firmly. "She knows this land better than any of us. Trust me." At first, the team moved cautiously, following Lyra through hidden paths and strategic positions. Slowly, they began to see the results. The intruders were slowed, misled, and sometimes trapped, not harmed but diverted. Every move was calculated, precise, and humane. Arya felt a surge of pride. Lyra's guidance had saved them from disaster once again, but not everyone was convinced. Some colonists still whispered doubts, pointing to Velora's unpredictability. "It's a wild animal," one muttered. "We can't rely on it." Arya ignored them. She had learned that respect could not be demanded, it had to be earned. And Lyra was earning it, step by step, through action and courage. During the second encounter, one intruder had slipped past the defenses and entered a small settlement outpost. Panic spread as alarms blared. Arya and Lyra rushed forward. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, scanning the area for danger. She located the intruder hiding near a supply crate and moved with quiet precision. Instead of attacking, Lyra communicated through gestures and soft chirps. The intruder froze, confused by the calm and deliberate behavior. Arya stepped forward, guiding the humans to contain the situation safely. The intruder surrendered without violence, and the outpost remained unharmed. The colony watched in awe. Some colonists whispered, maybe she isn't just a pet. Others nodded silently, seeing the truth for themselves. Arya knew this was the turning point. Lyra had demonstrated that intelligence, empathy, and courage could come in many forms, and that respecting those forms was not weakness, but strength. The following days were filled with training and preparation. Arya worked closely with Lyra, teaching the team how to communicate and coordinate with her. Slowly, even the skeptics began to trust her guidance. They saw that Lyra could anticipate challenges, solve problems quickly, and act decisively under pressure. One evening, after a long day of preparation, Arya and Lyra sat together overlooking the forest. The sky was a swirl of orange and violet, and the colony glowed softly below. "You've changed things, Lyra," Arya said quietly. "People are starting to see you for who you really are. Not a pet, not a curiosity, but a true partner." Lyra chirped softly, brushing her fingers against Arya's hand. The gesture was simple, but it carried trust, friendship, and understanding. Arya smiled, feeling a deep connection she had never experienced with anyone else. The next test came sooner than expected. Scouts reported that the intruders were regrouping, preparing for a coordinated approach toward the colony. The council called an emergency meeting. This time, Arya and Lyra's strategy was not just advisory, it was central to the plan. "Lyra will guide the defense," Arya told the council. "She knows the terrain, their patterns, and the best ways to protect the colony. Trust us." The council hesitated, but the evidence was clear. Lyra had proven herself beyond doubt. Reluctantly, they approved. As night fell, the intruders advanced. The colony was prepared. Lyra led the defense with calm precision, directing human teams through hidden paths, identifying safe zones, and anticipating enemy movements. The intruders were skilled but unfamiliar with Velora. Every maneuver Lyra suggested gave the colony an advantage. During a tense moment, an intruder attempted to sabotage a critical energy generator. Arya and Lyra acted quickly. Lyra darted ahead, using her agility to block the intruder's path while Arya coordinated the humans to secure the area. The intruder was captured without harm. Once again, Lyra's intelligence and quick thinking had prevented disaster. By dawn, the intruders had retreated. The colony had survived, unharmed, thanks to Lyra and Arya's partnership. For the first time, even the most skeptical colonists approached them with respect. They saw Lyra not as a creature to be studied or controlled, but as a vital member of the colony, a being whose abilities and intelligence were equal to any humans. That morning, the council held a formal recognition ceremony. Arya spoke first, her voice steady and proud. "Today we have seen the true value of partnership. Intelligence and courage are not limited to one species. Lyra has proven herself as a guide, a protector, and a friend. She is not a pet. She is our partner." Lyra chirped softly, stepping beside Arya. The council members nodded, some with smiles, others with solemn respect. It was not just a victory in strategy, it was a victory in perception. After the ceremony, Arya and Lyra walked together through the colony. Colonists greeted them warmly, some reaching out to touch Lyra's glowing skin with curiosity and respect. Arya felt a quiet joy. The journey had been long, the struggle real, but they had changed minds and hearts. That evening, Arya and Lyra returned to their quiet corner of the colony. The stars shimmered above, and the twin moons of Velora cast soft silver light across the landscape. "You've taught them something important today," Arya said softly. "That courage, intelligence, and loyalty can come in many forms. That partnership is stronger than prejudice, and that respect is earned, not given." Lyra chirped softly, her glowing skin pulsing gently as if agreeing. Arya smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. They had faced danger, defied prejudice, and proven that the bond between human and Veloran could change the colony forever. The night was quiet, but Arya knew that challenges would continue. There would be more intruders, more tests, and more doubts to overcome. But she also knew that with Lyra by her side, they could face anything. Together, they had not only survived, they had led a colony into a new era of understanding, respect, and unity. Arya reached out, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "No matter what comes next, we face it together," she whispered. Lyra chirped, brushing her fingers against Arya's hand. The gesture was simple, but it carried promise, trust, and the unspoken bond that had grown stronger with every challenge. As the twin moons of Velora rose high, casting a silver glow over the colony, Arya and Lyra sat together in quiet triumph. They had proven that partnership, intelligence, and courage could overcome prejudice, and that the strongest bonds were built not on fear, but on trust, respect, and understanding. For the first time, Arya felt certain of one thing. Velora was no longer a stranger, and Lyra was no longer just a companion. Together, they were unstoppable. The morning sun rose over Velora, casting long shadows across the colony. Arya Kellen stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the distant forest. The intruders were regrouping again, more cautious than before, but persistent. Their numbers had grown, and their technology was becoming more aggressive. This time, the threat was undeniable. The colony would face a full-scale encounter, and it was up to Arya and Lyra to protect it. Lyra stood beside her, glowing softly in the morning light. Her eyes scanned the horizon, reflecting intelligence, calm, and determination. Arya reached out, placing a hand on her partner's shoulder. "Ready?" she asked. Lyra chirped softly, tilting her head. Together they had faced smaller threats, defended the colony, and earned the respect of the humans. Now they would face the largest challenge yet. The council gathered in the command center. Many members were still cautious, but there was no doubt that Lyra's abilities were central to the plan. Arya presented the strategy clearly: use the terrain, anticipate the intruders' moves, and coordinate humans and Velorans as one team. Lyra would guide the operation, using her knowledge of the forest and her unique instincts. The intruders advanced faster than expected. Sensors picked up their movements in real time. They were careful, organized, and determined. But they underestimated one thing: the partnership between Arya and Lyra. "Follow Lyra's lead," Arya instructed. "Trust her instincts. She knows what to do." The Veloran darted forward into the forest, moving gracefully and silently. Human teams followed her through hidden paths, setting up traps and barriers exactly where she indicated. Every maneuver was precise. Every action had purpose. The first confrontation occurred near a narrow canyon. One group of intruders attempted to flank the colony, but Lyra anticipated their path. She chirped sharply, signaling the human team to take strategic positions along the cliffs. When the intruders approached, the terrain itself worked against them. Narrow passages slowed their advance, while hidden barriers forced them into controlled zones. Lyra moved ahead, guiding humans to safe positions and warning them of dangers before they were visible. Arya watched from above, her heart pounding. The intruders were skilled, but they had never faced a force like this. Humans and Velorans working together seamlessly, guided by intelligence, strategy, and trust. A sudden surge of energy pulsed from one of the intruders' devices. It could have damaged the colony's outer defenses. Lyra reacted instantly. She leaped forward, placing her hands on the device. The glowing lines on her skin pulsed, interacting with the technology in a way that human engineers could not understand. The pulse neutralized the threat. Arya's jaw dropped. Lyra had found a solution without anyone speaking a word. The intruders hesitated. Their advantage, their technology, was being countered in ways they had not predicted. Lyra chirped sharply, signaling the humans to press forward strategically. The intruders faltered, unsure how to proceed against such coordination and adaptability. Meanwhile, other parts of the colony were under pressure. Some intruders attempted to breach the supply areas, while others aimed for communication towers. Arya and Lyra split their efforts, each guiding teams to defend critical points. Lyra's agility, intelligence, and awareness proved invaluable. She detected threats humans could not see and suggested solutions faster than any machine. During one critical moment, an intruder managed to disable a section of the colony's energy shield. Panic spread among the team. Arya clenched her fists, then saw Lyra moving confidently toward the damaged area. She directed the human engineers with precise gestures, helping them restore the system in record time. When the shield flickered back online, the colony breathed a sigh of relief. Hours passed in a tense dance of strategy and skill. The intruders advanced, retreated, and adjusted, but every move was countered. Arya marveled at Lyra's abilities, not just intelligence, but intuition, empathy, and leadership. Humans were learning to anticipate the Velorans' insights, working together as equals, forming a bond that neither species had experienced before. By evening, the intruders finally retreated. The colony had survived unscathed. The victory was not achieved through brute force, but through understanding, strategy, and cooperation. Arya and Lyra stood together on the ridge, overlooking the settlement. The sun dipped behind Velora's twin horizons, casting gold and violet hues across the landscape. The council called another meeting. This time, there was no doubt in their minds. Arya and Lyra presented the events, demonstrating how coordination between humans and Velorans had not only defended the colony, but preserved life and resources. "We have witnessed something extraordinary," a council member said, his voice filled with awe. "Not just bravery, but partnership, intelligence and courage that surpass species boundaries." Lyra chirped softly, tilting her head toward Arya. The council members paused, realizing that the Veloran before them was not a curiosity or a tool, but a true partner, equal in every respect. Recognition was given formally. Lyra was no longer seen as a pet or a creature to be studied. She was acknowledged as a vital member of the colony, a being whose contributions were equal to any humans. For Arya, this was more than a victory. It was validation of everything she had believed since the first day she met Lyra. That intelligence, empathy, and courage could take any form, and that respect must be earned and given equally. With the intruder threat resolved, the colony began a new era of exploration and cooperation. Lyra guided humans through Velora's forests, revealing hidden paths, ancient ruins, and sustainable resources. The bond between humans and Velorans strengthened, each learning from the other. Humans adapted new strategies inspired by Lyra's intuition, while Velorans observed and learned human innovation. Together, they expanded the colony, exploring previously inaccessible areas and uncovering the mysteries of the planet. Arya often walked through the forests with Lyra, reflecting on how far they had come. From the first hesitant encounter to defending the colony against hostile forces, their partnership had grown stronger. They had faced danger, defied prejudice, and changed the course of history for the colony. "You've changed everything," Arya said one evening as they watched the twin moons rise. "The colony, the council, even me, I couldn't have done any of this without you." Lyra chirped softly, brushing her fingers against Arya's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried trust, friendship, and the unspoken bond that had been forged through trials, danger, and understanding. News of the partnership spread beyond the colony. Other human settlements began to study Velorans not as curiosities, but as partners. They realized that true strength did not lie in domination or fear, but in collaboration, respect, and understanding. Lyra became a symbol of unity between species, a living example that intelligence, empathy, and courage could be found in any form. Years passed and the colony flourished. Humans and Velorans worked side by side, exploring Velora, protecting it, and learning from each other. Arya remained at the forefront of this new era, always with Lyra by her side. They discovered new species, uncovered more of Velora's history, and developed technologies inspired by the planet's unique ecosystem. One morning, Arya and Lyra stood together on a hill overlooking the colony, watching children, human and Veloran, playing together. The laughter, curiosity, and joy of the next generation were proof that the bond they had built would continue. Humanity had learned to see beyond appearances, to value intelligence and courage in all forms, and to embrace the power of partnership. Arya took a deep breath, feeling the wind carry the scent of the forests. "We've done something incredible," she said softly. "We've shown that respect, trust, and collaboration can change the world." Lyra chirped softly, leaning against her shoulder. Together they watched the sun rise over Velora, a world full of promise, challenges, and wonders. They had faced danger, defied prejudice, and forged a bond that would last a lifetime. For Arya, Lyra was more than a companion. She was a partner, a teacher, a protector, and a friend. And together they had changed the future, not just for the colony, but for all of humanity. The stars above Velora twinkled in silent celebration, reflecting a universe that was vast, mysterious, and full of potential. Arya and Lyra stood together, ready to face whatever came next. No threat, no challenge, no prejudice could break their bond. The world had changed, and so had humanity. And in the center of it all, Arya and Lyra stood as equals, proof that true partnership, courage, and intelligence knew no boundaries. Together, they had not only survived, they had created a new era, and this era was just beginning.